Entertainment magazine editor and author Lori Majewski is the kind of music nerd that's always making lists. And she's ready to share a new one with you. An hour of classic 80s alternative united by a common theme. Lust for Lists starts now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Lust for List. You know, the show that brings you an hour of classic alternative and new wave with a theme. I am your host, Travis Gravel, and I am subbing for the delightful Lori Majewski. Now, I am the Why Hunger winner from 2019. Yeah, 2019. Wow, that seems like a long time ago. Well, this is actually my second time on the show. But this time, Lori's given me free rein to play whatever I want. I hope you know what you're doing, Lori. But no, this show is going to be great. You're going to hear some songs that maybe you've never heard on this channel before, and some really amazing stories. Now to the theme. Everybody knows 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? Well, if you don't, let me quickly explain. They say that every actor can be traced back to Kevin Bacon without going over 6 steps. So let's use Elvis Presley as an example. Elvis was in a movie called Change of Habit with Ed Asner. And Ed Asner was in JFK with Kevin Bacon. So that would give Elvis Presley a Bacon number of 2. Now going forward, I'm going to refer to the number as a score since we're dealing with music. This show is called 6 Degrees of Johnny Marr. So we will try to link back Johnny Marr to within 6 steps of every band played today. Now, we came in with electronics getting away with it. So electronic would have a Marr score of 0 since Johnny is in the band. The next band I'm about to play would have a Marr score of 1, since New Order's lead singer is Bernard Sumner, who also played in electronic. This is the most musically perfect song I've ever heard. It's called Regret by New Order. Hello again, this is Travis, and that was Travis. No, not my band. Although I did have a band at one point. We never made it out of the cutthroat world of homecomings and proms. But we eventually split up due to musical similarities. Now we came in with Travis, Why Does It Always Rain on Me? Now they would have a Marr score of 2, because Travis's first record was Good Feeling that was produced by Steve Lillywhite, and Steve Lillywhite mixed Ask by the Smiths, obviously which Johnny is a part of. Now, I remember Travis back in the 90s. I was walking around London around 97 and walked into an H&V record store, and this single, Travis, Tied to the 90s, was in the window, and I thought, okay, it's got my name on it, I have to buy it. It called to me. So I put it on, kind of a chunky, poppy guitar thing, and really loved it. And then the second record came out, The Man Who, and it was totally different, but I was just massively into it. Absolutely loved that entire record. And I remember at one point, I was listening to Elton John on the radio. This was before the song had really broken or anybody knew who they were, and he played it on the local radio station, and I just thought, wow, Elton goes deep. I mean, he really knows his stuff. I was completely impressed. And years later, I did actually meet him and talk with him about music, and he was absolutely an obsessive. Very similar to myself. Now we're going to get deeper into some Britpop. Yes, to me the most logical place to go after New Wave was Britpop. It's English bands writing great music. Now it might not have hit the height of the charts like New Wave did in the 80s, but there were still really great songs. And this next band I'm about to play, I did see them at the height of Britpop in 1992 at the Town and Country in London. Now, the lead singer, Damon Albarn, must have been a little out of his mind because he was literally running full force into the giant stack of speakers. And he did this repeatedly. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. So fast forward maybe almost a decade later, and I met Damon and asked him about the show, and I had the ticket with me. And Damon said, that gig changed my life. And so he literally scrawled on the ticket, this show changed my life. And so if I get a chance, I'm going to put that up on the First Wave Facebook page so everybody can kind of see it. But that was kind of an interesting, that this particular moment in time changed his life. So I'm playing End of a Century by Blur, which has a Marr score of 2. Blur famously worked with Stephen Street, and Stephen Street famously worked with the Smiths.
She says there's ants in the carpet, dirty little monsters, eating all the muscles. Close your legs, open your mind, leave those
Okay, that was The Beautiful South with 36D. That was quite the controversial song with the band internally. Female lead singer Brianna Corrigan was quite frustrated by the lyrics and thinking that the men of the glamour industry should be attacked and not the females of the industry. When I talked to the group about their music in America, they were very frustrated by the lack of airplay. But I told them, you're a word-of-mouth band. But I understand this band is massive in the UK, but not getting really any attention in America, and that can be frustrating. So it's kind of the old adage of, would you rather be word of mouth where people discover you and just deeply connect with you and love you forever, or would you rather be on the radio 24/7 and people like you for the moment, and then some of them fans go away? So I guess that's maybe a conversation for another day, or we can take it up on Facebook, Sirius First Wave Facebook. But I'm your host, Travis Gravel. I'm guest hosting this week for Lori Majewski. Now, this next song is from a group from Georgia. I know what you're thinking, REM. But no, this is not REM. This is actually a duo from Decatur, Georgia called the Indigo Girls. Now, I was obsessed with the Indigo Girls in the late 80s and 90s. I used to follow them around to shows here locally and watch them play. I just thought their lyrics were great. They're an amazing harmonies they had with their acoustic guitars. They were great. And they came along during that whole women's movement period in that late 80s and 90s with Suzanne Vega, Tracy Chapman, 10,000 Maniacs, Edie Brickell. I love all of that stuff. I really thought that they kind of picked up on the new wave movement, the punk movement that preceded them and kind of infused that into their music. I mean, I know that Amy from Indigo Girls likes punk music, so I kind of always felt that they had the ethos of punk, even in those kind of folky songs or kind of hippie songs. They were influenced by that. Now, if you're keeping score at home, the Indigo Girls have a Marr score of 3. John Reynolds produced their album Come On Social, and John Reynolds also produced Sinead O'Connor's I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got. I think they also were married for a brief time and have a son together, for which Andy Rourke played bass on several tracks and toured with Sinead. And of course, Andy played with Johnny and the Smiths. Now, this song is called Closer to Fine.
I'm trying to tell you something about my life. Maybe give me insight between black and white.
We just came in with Natalie Merchant's River. Now that song is written about River Phoenix, who to me was one of the great actors of our time. He had something very unique, very similar to a James Dean. And I thought after his passing outside the Viper Room that he would live on like James Dean. But despite like REM dedicating Monster to him and this song with Natalie, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers wrote a song for him as well, we have actors who cite him as major influences like Leonardo DiCaprio and Jared Leto. He didn't live on like James Dean did, and I'm kind of disappointed by that. But still check out River Phoenix. He was kind of the first activist actor teen. He was a vegan. He spoke out. He was very influential, certainly in my life. But check out Running on Empty. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor and also a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor. You might know him in Stand By Me, which is a bigger commercial hit. And also he was the young Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. But Running on Empty, I think, is his best work. But if you're keeping track with Natalie, she has a Marr score of 2. She performed Unplugged with David Byrne, and they did this great cover of the Iris DeMent song, Let the Mystery Be. And also David obviously invited Johnny to work with Talking Heads on the album called Naked. My name is Travis Gravel, and I am your guest host for Lust for List. Today, replacing the irreplaceable Laurie Majewski. Now, this next song I'm going to play is by an Irish group. I'm sure you can guess it's U2, but the song that I'm going to play would be a little more difficult. Now, this song is unique to me because it gives me this kind of knee-jerk reaction every time I hear it. And I remember a friend of mine invited me to see his band on the Music Builds tour with Robert Randolph. And at the very end of the show, the two came out together and played this song. And I distinctly remember just jumping out of my chair at the first note and just rocking out, thinking I didn't even care if anybody was seeing me, or I'm sure they thought I was absolutely crazy for jumping out and rocking out to this song, but I couldn't help it. It was a reflex that I could not control. And I think this is probably the only song that has this reaction has this hold on me. But if you're keeping track, U2 would have a Marr score of 2 because Stephen Lillywhite produced the first couple records of U2, and then Stephen Lillywhite also mixed Ask. So here it is, When Love Comes to Town, U2 with B.B. King. This is Travis Gravel, your Why Hunger winner from 2019, and I'm your guest host on Lust for List. Now, we just came in with Joy Division, Love Will Tear Us Apart. Now, this is obviously a classic song. I think it's sitting at number 41 on Rolling Stone's Top 500 Songs of All Time that was just released this year. But I'm going to say something controversial here that I think New Order should be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before Joy Division. I think New Order's influence over music is much broader than Joy Division. I mean, Joy Division only had 2 records. But if you disagree with me, that's fine. Go on Facebook, Serious First Wave Facebook, and you will debate it. Now, Joy Division would have a Marr score of 3 since Bernard Sumner was in Joy Division and also in New Order and also in electronic. Now, the next band I'm going to play is my favorite band, The Smiths. And I just realized that last time I was on the show, I didn't actually play one of their songs. It was Morrissey that I played, singing one of the Smiths songs. But this time it's going to be a true Smiths track. I just went and saw Morrissey a couple weeks ago in this Vegas residency. He was wonderful. He was in great health and good voice. And thank you, Morrissey, for the shout out from the stage. Now, there was a time that I actually met Morrissey and Marr in the same week in London. And I think last time I told the story about meeting Morrissey. This time I'm going to tell the story about Johnny Marr. We were going back and forth between Marr and Morrissey's house, which was only about 10 minutes apart in a town called Altrincham. And so the second time we came to Johnny's house, the gate was open, and us being kind of brash Americans, we're like, well, let's go knock on the door. So we knock on the door, and Johnny actually answers. He says, "Go away from my house, F off." And we're like, kind of this Joy Division of, wow, he yelled at us, but he just talked to me. We're like, oh my God, Johnny Marr just talked to me. So we were kind of talking about it and chatting about it, going to the train station. And all of a sudden this blue BMW pulls up. It's a convertible. And my first thought was like, oh my God, Johnny's going to kill us. And he's like, hey, where are you going? And And we're like, to London? He's like, no. And we're like, to Manchester? No. And it was like, okay, the train station. He goes, hop in, I'll give you a ride. So he explained, he's like, I had a Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now shirt on. He's like, I'm never rude to Smiths fans. I apologize for my behavior. And he drove us to the train station as I peppered him with questions that I've always wanted to ask. We got out of the car. He gives us both copies of an electronic single, Disappointed. It hadn't been released yet. They were promo copies. And he signed the back of them, which was just amazing. And we took pictures in the car and everything. And I'm going to try to get those up on Facebook. But I still see him from time to time when he comes into town with the Cribs or whoever, his solo stuff, and he still remembers the story. It kind of blows my mind that he still remembers that. You know, he gave us a ride. I'm not Noel Gallagher. He gave Noel Gallagher a ride, but maybe I can kind of pay back the ride with telling the story and how wonderful Johnny is. Now, this is called Nowhere Fast by the Smiths.
I'd like to drop my trousers to the world. I am a man of means, of slender means. Each household appliance is like a new silence in my town. And if the day
You just heard the Ocean Blues' beautiful song Slide, which came from their See the Ocean Blue release. Now, I saw the band play last week in Atlanta and Nashville, and they told me that See the Ocean Blue and Davy Jones' Locker are going to be reissued on vinyl next year. So, the Ocean Blue also do a wonderful cover of There's a Light That Never Goes Out by the Smiths. Now, I kind of feel like I had a part in this, but I probably don't. But every time I would see the Ocean Blue come into town, we would talk about the Smiths. They also liked the band as well. So one of the performances, the bass player came up and nodded, and they played There's a Light for me. So I always kind of felt like maybe I was the catalyst to get them to play the song. But I bet you they always kind of quote Howie Klein, who was the Sire Records boss, as the one that convinced them to put the song on record. I think it's on a EP that they released, the Peace and Light EP. But it's well out of print at this point, and I think it goes for some pretty good money if you can find it. My name is Travis Gravel, and I am your guest host on this week's Lust for List. I am the Why Hunger winner from 2019. Now, the last song, The Ocean Blue, had a Marr score of 2 because John Porter worked with The Ocean Blue on their first record, and John Porter worked with the Smiths on their first record. But this next band was definitely the furthest away from Johnny Marr. Although, to go to prove that you can't get 6 degrees away from Johnny Marr. But EMF, if you can follow this, we're 5 steps away from Johnny Marr and have a Johnny Marr score of 5. Ian Dench was the guitarist and the band director for EMF when they were in their heyday. And he went on to do really great things with Beyonce and different things. But he worked with Florence and the Machine. And Florence and the Machine worked with Paul Epworth, who does a lot of Adele stuff. And Paul Epworth produced Coldplay's Ghost. And Dayton Supple worked on Ghost. He's an engineer. And that same engineer worked with Morrissey on Rare Tracks and Vauxhall and I. And then obviously Morrissey and Marr connected. So that was a difficult one. 5 steps away was EMF. And this song is called Unbelievable. It's a 3-chord masterpiece. I can't believe it did not make it into the top 500 songs of all time. People might think it's cheesy, people might think it doesn't fit, but it is a song that you never get sick of hearing.
You're unbelievable. Every wind I hear you sing,
Wow, that was For the Dead by Gene. What a beautiful song. I'm not sure that song has ever been played by any of the channels here on Sirius XM. But they have a Marr score of 3, Gene does. They worked with Hugh Jones on their Revelations album, and Hugh Jones produced The Charlatans, and Johnny Marr played on the Charlatans' Different Days record in 2017. I want to give a massive, massive thank you to Lori Majewski for letting me host the show this week. It's been so much fun. And SiriusXM, thank you for letting me, as the Why Hungerthon winner from 2019, come on and play the songs that I love. My name is Travis Gravel, and I want to leave you with this. If you're of a certain age between 45 and 55, and you love this music in high school, you're ahead of your time. You're different. You're special. You see things differently than the rest of the world. And until next time, thank you.
That was Lori Majewski's Lust for Lists on Sirius XM First Wave. Hear it again Monday, 1 a.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific. Listen whenever you want with the Sirius XM app. Free for most subscribers. Download it today and start listening outside the car.